The sound of champagne glass shattering on marble floor was the exact moment I realized my entire future had just been stolen. $120,000. Gone. Just like that. I stood frozen in the center of the gallery, surrounded by flashing cameras and well-dressed guests admiring my Phoenix collection, the culmination of 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. My phone was still pressed against my ear, Maria's panicked voice echoing in my head like a death sentence. The room kept spinning around me, all those beautiful clothes I had designed, all those dreams stitched into silk and linen, suddenly feeling hollow and meaningless. Because without that money, without that loan I had fought so hard to secure, Phoenix Designs would collapse before it ever had a chance to truly soar. My name is Edna Jenkins, and I am 34 years old. I have spent my entire adult life building something from nothing, turning tragedy into purpose, transforming grief into creation. But that night, standing in the ruins of what should have been my greatest triumph, I learned that sometimes the people who smile at your table are the same ones who will rob you blind while you sleep. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how I got here. You need to know why I worked so hard, why every single dollar meant survival, not luxury. Why losing that money was not just about business but about betraying everything my parents had died for. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, where corner stores still existed, and where my parents ran a small antique shop that barely kept us afloat. My mother had an eye for beauty in forgotten things, and my father had hands that could restore anything broken. They taught me that value is not about price tags but about craftsmanship, care, and integrity. They taught me to work hard, save harder, and never take shortcuts. My sister Emily was 5 years younger than me, and we could not have been more different. Where I was disciplined and focused, she was wild and spontaneous. Where I saved every penny from my part-time jobs, she spent hers on concerts and parties. Our parents loved us both, but I always felt this quiet weight of responsibility, this unspoken expectation that I would be the stable one, the one who would carry on their values. When I was 24 and Emily was 19, our parents died in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday evening, and just like that, they were gone. The grief nearly destroyed us both. Emily spiraled into depression, dropping out of community college, moving from one bad relationship to another. I channeled my pain into action. I took the $75,000 my parents left me, their life savings scraped together from decades of hard work, and I poured every cent into Phoenix Designs. The name was deliberate. A phoenix rises from ashes. That is what I intended to do. I started small, a tiny boutique in a converted warehouse space in Northeast Portland, focusing on sustainable fashion, upcycled materials, ethical production. It was not glamorous at first. I worked 18-hour days, teaching myself pattern making, sitting at a sewing machine until my fingers cramped, sketching designs on scrap paper at 3 a.m. But slowly, painfully slowly, it started to work. Local boutiques began carrying my pieces. A Portland lifestyle blogger featured one of my jackets. Orders trickled in, then flowed. Emily took her share of the inheritance, the same $75,000, and burned through it in less than 2 years. Expensive trips, designer handbags she never used, loans to boyfriends who disappeared, deposits on apartments she never moved into. She called me crying more times than I could count, and every time, I helped her. I paid her rent when she was short. I bought her groceries when her account was empty. I convinced myself I was being a good sister, honoring what our parents would have wanted. Then, 3 years ago, Emily met Victor Stone. I will never forget the first time she brought him to my apartment for dinner. He walked in like he owned the place, his eyes scanning my space with barely concealed contempt. He was 38, 8 years older than me, with the kind of polished appearance that screamed money but whispered something darker underneath. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He worked in real estate investment, he said, flipping properties, making deals, always talking about his next big score. Throughout dinner, he made subtle digs at my work. When Emily proudly showed him photos of my latest collection, he smirked and said, "Your sister's little shop is cute, babe, but real money is in property. Fashion is so unstable." When I mentioned I was hoping to expand, he laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Expanding in this economy? That takes either guts or stupidity, and I'm not sure which." I watched my sister that night, really watched her. The way she went quiet when he spoke, the way she laughed at his jokes even when they were not funny, the way she looked at me apologetically, as if begging me to understand something she could not put into words. Emily had always been wild, but she had also always been vibrant, full of light. With Victor, that light was dimming. Over the next 2 years, I watched my sister disappear into his shadow. She stopped calling as often. When we did talk, she was always checking over her shoulder, making sure he was not listening. She gained weight, then lost too much. Her hands started shaking when she thought no one was looking. But whenever I asked if everything was okay, she insisted she was fine. She loved him. He took care of her. I just did not understand their relationship. I tried to understand. I really did. I invited them both over for holidays. I bit my tongue when Victor made snide comments about my business. I smiled when he bragged about his investment deals, even though something about his stories never quite added up. The numbers were always vague. The partners were always unnamed. The properties were always about to close. Then, 6 months ago, everything started to change for me professionally. A major lifestyle magazine featured Phoenix designs in a spread about sustainable fashion. Orders exploded overnight. I had to hire 3 more seamstresses. I signed a lease for a second location in the Pearl District, Portland's upscale shopping area. It was the breakthrough I had been working toward for a decade, but I needed capital. The new space required renovation, equipment, inventory, staff. I needed $120,000 to do it right. I applied for a business loan, provided 3 years of financial records, wrote a detailed business plan. After 2 months of waiting, the bank approved it. I cried when I got the call. Not tears of joy, exactly, but tears of relief. I had made it. I was really going to make it. The money hit my account on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. I called Maria, my business partner and production manager, and we screamed into the phone like teenagers. I called Emily to share the good news, and she suggested we celebrate as a family at our parents' old lake house, the one place we had kept after their deaths, maintained by a trust. A weekend together, she said. Like old times. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia would be there too. It would be good for all of us. I should have known better. I should have listened to the small voice in my head that said something felt wrong, but I was riding high on success, drunk on possibility, and I missed my sister. I missed the girl she used to be before Victor Stone walked into her life and dimmed her light. So I packed my laptop, some clothes, and drove the 2 hours to the lake house on a Friday evening. The place looked exactly as it always had, wooden beams and large windows overlooking the water, a dock with a small rowboat tied to it. Uncle Robert's truck was already in the driveway, along with a sleek black Mercedes I did not recognize. Victor and Emily had arrived early. When I walked through the door, Victor was holding court in the living room, pontificating about some massive real estate deal, talking about millions of dollars like they were pocket change. Aunt Patricia was nodding along, impressed. Uncle Robert looked skeptical but stayed quiet. Emily sat on the arm of Victor's chair, her hand on his shoulder, smiling that strange, tight smile I had come to associate with her new self. Victor looked up when I entered, and his eyes flickered with something I could not quite name. "Edna!" The fashion mogul graces us with her presence. His tone was mocking, wrapped in false warmth. "Still selling enough dresses to keep the lights on?" I forced a smile. "Actually, I just secured funding to open a second location. Business is better than ever." His expression shifted, just for a second. Interest, maybe, or something darker. "Expanding? In this market? You are braver than I thought." Emily jumped in quickly. "Edna is brilliant at what she does. I am so proud of her." Victor squeezed her knee, a gesture that looked affectionate but felt possessive. "Of course she is, babe. Of course she is." The weekend progressed with mounting tension I could not quite pinpoint. Meals were strained, conversations felt performative. Victor dominated every discussion, always steering it back to himself, his deals, his success. I caught him watching me several times, studying me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. On Saturday evening, after dinner, I went to my room to check some emails. I had brought my laptop to review vendor contracts, and I needed to transfer some funds to suppliers on Monday. When I opened it, something felt off. The laptop was positioned slightly differently than I had left it. The charging cable was plugged into the wrong port. These were small things, the kind of details most people would not notice, but I am meticulous about my workspace. I always have been. I checked my browser history. It had been cleared. My login history showed a failed password attempt from an unrecognized device earlier that day. My stomach clenched. Someone had tried to access my accounts. I immediately enabled 2-factor authentication on every financial account I had, changed all my passwords, installed additional security software. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I had moved the laptop myself and forgotten. Maybe the hotel I had stayed at last week had some security issues. There were reasonable explanations. But I could not shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through scenarios in my head. Who would want to access my accounts? Who even knew about the loan? I had mentioned it to Emily, but she would never betray me. We were sisters. We were blood. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Maria. My heart stopped before I even checked the voicemail. I knew. Somehow, I already knew. I called her back, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Edna, the payment to the fabric supplier bounced. The deposit for the Pearl District build-out was returned. I checked your business account and it is showing 0. Edna, where is the money?" My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I opened my banking app, And there it was. Or rather, there it was not. The account that had shown $123,000 on Friday evening now showed $472, the remainder from my previous balance. The loan, the entire loan, had been transferred out. I started scrolling through the transaction history, my vision blurring. Starting at 11:42 p.m. Saturday night, there had been a series of transfers: $20,000 to a numbered account, $30,000 to another, $15,000, $25,000. Smaller amounts after that, each one going to different accounts I did not recognize. The transfers continued until 4:15 in the morning. Someone had methodically drained my account while the entire house slept. Or while I slept, at least. I stumbled out of my room, my phone clutched in my hand, and made my way downstairs. Everyone was in the kitchen. Aunt Patricia was making pancakes. Uncle Robert was reading the newspaper. Emily was pouring coffee. Victor was leaning against the counter, eating a piece of bacon, looking completely relaxed. I must have looked like a ghost because everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at me. "Edna?" Emily set down the coffee pot. "Are you okay? You look awful." I opened my mouth but no sound came out at first. Then, finally, I managed to speak, and my voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from very far away. "My money is gone. The loan. All of it. $120,000. Someone transferred it out of my account last night." The room went completely silent. Aunt Patricia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Uncle Robert dropped his newspaper. Emily's face went pale. Victor did not move. He just kept chewing his bacon, watching me with those cold, calculating eyes. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and called my bank's fraud department, putting it on speaker. The representative who answered was professional but firm. After verifying my identity, she walked me through the transactions. "These transfers were initiated from a device logged into your account at 11:42 p.m. last night, continuing until 4:15 this morning. The device was recognized because it had accessed your account previously. The IP address shows the transfers originated from your current location. All security questions were answered correctly. All passwords were entered correctly." My blood turned to ice. "That is impossible. I was asleep. Someone else must have accessed my account." "Mrs. Jenkins, our system shows this was not a hack. This was someone with legitimate access to your credentials, operating from a device that had already been authenticated." I looked up from my phone, and my eyes locked onto Victor. He was still leaning against the counter, but his casual demeanor had shifted slightly. There was something in his expression now, something almost triumphant. "Victor," I said, my voice low and dangerous, "you were near my laptop yesterday. Did you go into my room?" Emily stepped forward immediately. "Edna, what are you saying?" "I am asking if your husband went into my room and accessed my laptop." Victor laughed, but it sounded forced. "You are really accusing me right now? Maybe you should look at your business partner. Maybe she is not as trustworthy as you think." "Show me your bank statements," I said flatly. "If you have nothing to hide, show me your accounts right now." His smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. He reached out and put his arm around Emily's waist, pulling her against him. "We are leaving. I do not have to stand here and be accused of theft by your paranoid sister. You are not going anywhere." My voice was steel now. I felt something inside me shift, some fundamental change that I could not explain. The fear and shock were crystallizing into something harder, colder. Rage. "You are not leaving until I get every penny back." Victor's mask finally slipped. He looked at me with pure contempt. And when he spoke, his voice was different, stripped of all pretense. "We needed it more than you." The room exploded. Uncle Robert lurched to his feet, his chair clattering backward. Aunt Patricia made a choking sound. Emily was just staring at Victor with an expression of absolute horror. "What did you just say?" I could barely breathe. Victor shrugged, like he was discussing the weather. "You heard me. We needed it more than you. Your little dress shop was always going to fail anyway. At least this way, the money went to someone who knows how to really use it." Uncle Robert started toward Victor, his face red with fury, but I held up my hand. "No, let me handle this." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Her eyes were wide, filling with tears, and she was shaking her head slightly, like she could not believe what was happening. "Emily, did you know about this?" "No." Her voice cracked. "I swear to God, Edna, I did not know." Victor cut her off. "Shut up, Emily." "Don't tell her to shut up." I took a step closer. "You stole from me. You came into my family's home, you pretended to care about my sister, and you stole my future." He laughed again, and it was the ugliest sound I had ever heard. "Your future? You were always going to fail. You are just like your parents, small-minded, playing it safe, satisfied with scraps. I took your money, and I am going to turn it into something real. You should be thanking me." That was when I knew. I knew with absolute certainty that this man had been planning this for months, maybe years. He had gotten close to Emily specifically to get close to me, to my family, to whatever resources he could exploit. My sister was not his partner. She was his tool. I pulled out my phone again. Victor lunged toward me. "You are not calling the cops." Uncle Robert blocked him, and despite being almost 70, my uncle was still a big man. Victor stopped, but his face was twisted with rage. "Get out of my way, old man!" I was already dialing, but before I could finish, we heard it. The unmistakable sound of car doors slamming, heavy footsteps on the porch, then a loud, authoritative knock. "Police! Open up!" Victor's face went from red to white in an instant. Emily backed away from him, her hand over her mouth. Uncle Robert opened the door, and 3 police officers stepped inside, led by a woman in plainclothes who flashed a badge. "I am Detective Miller with Portland PD. We need to speak with Edna Jenkins." I raised my hand, feeling like I was in a dream. "That is me." Detective Miller looked at me with something like sympathy. "We received an automated alert from your bank's fraud detection system. They flagged unusual activity on your account and contacted us. We have been investigating since early this morning." She turned to Victor. "Victor Stone?" He did not answer. "We have been tracking your activities for the past 6 months. Multiple fraud complaints from other victims. Wire fraud. Identity theft. We finally have enough evidence to bring you in." She looked at me. "Your case gave us the final pieces we needed." I felt my knees go weak. "What do you mean, other victims?" "Mr. Stone has been running a sophisticated fraud operation. He targets women, usually through romantic relationships or family connections, gains access to their financial information, and drains their accounts. You are the 7th victim we know of." Emily made a sound like a wounded animal. She was staring at Victor with an expression of pure betrayal and devastation. "You said you loved me." He did not even look at her. He was focused entirely on the officers, calculating his options, looking for an escape route that did not exist. Detective Miller nodded to the uniformed officers, and they moved forward with handcuffs. As they pulled Victor's arms behind his back, he finally turned to Emily. His face was ugly with rage. "You are nothing without me, you understand? You are worthless." Something broke open in my sister's face. Years of being diminished, controlled, manipulated, all of it came flooding to the surface. She stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice was shaking but clear. "No, I was nothing with you. Without you, I can finally be myself again." The officers led Victor toward the door. He was ranting now, threatening lawsuits, claiming this was all a misunderstanding, insisting his lawyers would destroy all of us. His voice faded as they took him outside, and then he was gone. The house fell into stunned silence. Emily collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Aunt Patricia sat beside her, stroking her hair. Uncle Robert was on the phone with a lawyer friend, already trying to figure out next steps, and I just stood there, my phone still in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. Detective Miller approached me gently. "Miss Jenkins, I need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. But I want you to know, with the evidence we have, you will likely recover most of the stolen funds. The accounts he transferred to were monitored. We froze them within hours." I looked at her, and for the first time since Maria's call that morning, I felt like I could breathe. "How much?" "We recovered approximately $117,000. The rest was already moved to offshore accounts, but your bank's fraud insurance should cover the difference." I almost collapsed with relief. Almost. But I was not done yet. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of Victor's crimes emerged. He had not just stolen from me. He had drained accounts belonging to 3 other women he had dated, used a widow's life insurance payout to fund a gambling spree in Atlantic City, and convinced an elderly couple to invest their retirement savings in a property development scheme that never existed. The estimated total damage was over $2 million. Emily moved out of the apartment she had shared with Victor the day after his arrest. She came to stay with me, sleeping in my guest room, barely eating, barely speaking. I wanted to comfort her, but I did not know how. She had loved him. Despite everything, she had loved him, and that love had been a lie. One night, about a week after the arrest, I was working in my home office, reviewing contracts for the Pearl District location. The bank had restored 97% of the stolen money, and my insurance covered the rest. Phoenix Designs would survive. My dream would survive. Emily appeared in the doorway, looking small and lost. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She sat down across from me, picking at her fingernails, a nervous habit she had had since childhood. "I am so sorry, Edna. I know that does not even begin to cover it, but I am so sorry. You did not know. But I should have known. There were signs, so many signs. The way he kept me away from friends, the way he always needed to know where I was, how he controlled the money, even my own money, how he made me feel stupid and worthless." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You tried to warn me, didn't you? At the beginning?" I thought back to those early dinners, the subtle questions I had asked, the concerns I had raised. "I tried, but you were not ready to hear it." I loved him. God, Edna, I really loved him. How pathetic is that? I came around the desk and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. It is not pathetic, it is human. He was good at what he did. That is what predators do. They make you love them so you will not see what they are really doing. She sobbed then, and I held her the way I used to when we were kids, when she had nightmares or scraped her knees. We stayed like that until her tears ran out. The next morning, Emily announced she was going back to school. She wanted to finish the degree she had abandoned after our parents died. She wanted to study social work, she said. She wanted to help other people who had been manipulated and abused. She wanted to turn her pain into purpose. I recognized that impulse. It was what I had done with Phoenix Designs. The trial took 9 months. Victor pleaded not guilty, claimed he was being framed, insisted all the victims had given him the money willingly. His lawyer painted him as a misunderstood entrepreneur. But the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, testimony from 7 different women, forensic analysis of his devices showing deleted messages and hidden accounts. He was convicted on 14 counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay full restitution to all his victims. I was not there for the sentencing. I did not need to be. My closure did not come from watching him go to jail. It came from what I built after he tried to destroy me. Phoenix Designs opened its second location exactly 1 year after the theft. It was bigger than I had originally planned, brighter, more ambitious. The opening event was packed. Press came from Seattle, San Francisco, even New York. My sustainable fashion line had become something people actually cared about, something that mattered. Emily was there, of course. She was taking classes full-time but still helped me on weekends, managing the front desk, talking to customers. She had cut her hair short and dyed it back to her natural brown. She smiled more. She laughed more. She was finding herself again, piece by piece. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia came to the opening too. We had all been going to therapy, individually and as a family, working through the trauma of what Victor had done. It turned out that his presence in our lives had poisoned more than just Emily's relationship. He had made all of us question our judgment, our trust, our ability to protect the people we loved. But we were healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely healing. A few months after the trial, Emily suggested we go back to the lake house. I know it sounds crazy, she said, but I want to reclaim that space. He doesn't get to ruin it for us. It was Mom and Dad's place. It is our place. So we went, all 4 of us, and we spent the weekend cleaning, repainting, fixing the things that had been neglected. Uncle Robert repaired the dock. Aunt Patricia planted flowers. Emily and I reorganized the kitchen. We told stories about our parents, laughed at old memories, cried a little but not too much. On the last evening, we sat on the porch watching the sunset over the lake. Emily was leaning against my shoulder, the way she used to when we were kids. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said quietly. "You are my sister. I would never give up on you. Even when I was awful? Even when I chose him over you? Even then." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I am going to be okay, you know. It is going to take time, but I am going to be okay. I know you are." And I meant it, because I had watched her transform over the past year and a half. I had watched her reclaim her strength, piece by piece. I had watched her set boundaries, say no, walk away from situations that did not serve her. I had watched her become, slowly but surely, the woman she was always meant to be. As for me, Phoenix Designs continued to grow. I hired more staff, opened a 3rd location in Seattle, started getting inquiries about expanding to California. I dated a little, carefully, taking my time to really know people before letting them into my life. I learned to trust my instincts again, to listen to that small voice that said something was wrong instead of dismissing it. And I learned something crucial. Family is not just about blood. It is about who shows up when things fall apart. It is about who protects you, who believes you, who fights for you even when it would be easier to look away. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia showed up. Maria, my business partner, showed up. My friend Chloe, who let me ugly cry on her couch for 3 hours straight when everything first happened, showed up. These were the people who mattered. These were my real family, but I also learned that sometimes you have to protect yourself from the people who should protect you. Sometimes you have to cut ties, set boundaries, walk away from relationships that are killing you, even if those relationships are wrapped in the language of love and loyalty. Emily and I talk about this often now. She is in her 2nd year of social work school, doing her practicum at a domestic violence shelter. She sees women every day who are trapped in the same web she was trapped in, women who are manipulated, isolated, made to feel worthless by partners who claim to love them. She tells them her story. She tells them about Victor, about how he stole her sister's money, about how the police arrested him, about how she had to start her whole life over. But she also tells them about the other part. The part where she left, the part where she got help, the part where she rebuilt herself. Slowly, one day at a time. She tells them that blood does not give anyone the right to break you. That love does not hurt. That you are not responsible for someone else's cruelty. She tells them what I told her, in the kitchen of the lake house on that horrible Sunday morning. You deserve better than this. You deserve safety and respect and actual love, not whatever twisted version he is selling you. Now, 3 years later, I am sitting in my office at the Pearl District location, reviewing designs for next season's collection. Phoenix Designs has 32 employees. We are profitable. We are sustainable. We matter. My phone buzzes with a text from Emily. Finished my last final, graduating next month. You better cry at the ceremony, big sister. I smile and text back. I will sob like a baby, promise. Uncle Robert has already asked if he can host a graduation party at the lake house. Aunt Patricia is planning the menu. I am designing Emily a custom dress. We are a family again, but a different family. A chosen family, one built on respect and boundaries and genuine love. Sometimes people ask me if I am angry, if I hate Victor Stone for what he did. The truth is, I do not think about him at all anymore. He is in prison. He lost everything. His name is mud in every professional circle he ever tried to infiltrate. He is paying restitution for the rest of his life. My revenge was not about hurting him. It was about refusing to let him hurt me. It was about standing up, pressing charges, testifying, making sure he could never do this to anyone else. It was about taking back every penny he stole and using it to build something beautiful. My revenge was living well. My revenge was thriving. And Emily's revenge was leaving. It was cutting him out of her life so completely that he might as well have never existed. It was reclaiming her name, her identity, her future. It was standing in front of a judge and saying, I want a divorce, and I want nothing from him. Not his name, not his money, nothing. The judge had asked if she was sure. She said yes. She had never been more sure of anything in her life. I think about that moment often. My little sister, who had been so lost, so broken, standing in a courtroom and choosing herself, choosing freedom, choosing life. That is what this story is really about. Not about the money that was stolen or the man who stole it. It is about what happens after. It is about the decision to stop being a victim and start being a survivor. It is about drawing lines in the sand and saying, you do not get to cross this. Not anymore. If you are reading this, and you are in a situation where someone is manipulating you, controlling you, making you feel worthless, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. Your instincts are correct, and you deserve so much better. It does not matter if that person is your partner, your parent, your sibling, your best friend. It does not matter if they are family. Blood does not give anyone permission to abuse you. Love does not give anyone the right to destroy you. You can leave. You can set boundaries. You can say no. You can press charges. You can cut them out of your life completely, and you do not owe anyone an explanation. I know it is scary. I know it feels impossible. I know you are worried about being alone, about not having support, about whether you can make it on your own, but I promise you, the fear of leaving is always worse than the reality of leaving. On the other side of that fear is freedom, peace, and the chance to become who you were always meant to be. Emily and I were both broken by what Victor did. But we used those broken pieces to build something stronger. We learned to trust again, to love again, to hope again. But we also learned to protect ourselves, to listen to our instincts, to walk away from situations that do not serve us. We learned that the most powerful word in the English language is no. No, you cannot treat me like this. No, you cannot have my money. No, you cannot control my life. No, you cannot break me. Just no. And sometimes, the second most powerful thing you can do is walk away without looking back. The lake house is quiet now, in a good way. We go there every few months, the four of us, sometimes with friends, sometimes just family. We have new memories there now, better memories. We have barbecues and game nights and long conversations on the porch. We have laughter that is real, not forced. We have peace. Victor Stone does not exist in that space anymore. We took it back. We reclaimed it. It belongs to us again. My business is thriving. My sister is graduating with honors. Our family is healed. Not perfect, but healed. And I am proud of that. I am proud of us. So if you have ever had to cut someone toxic out of your life, if you have ever had to choose yourself over someone who is destroying you, I see you. I understand you. And I am so damn proud of you. Because it takes courage to walk away from someone who is supposed to love you. It takes strength to rebuild after betrayal. It takes resilience to trust again after someone has broken that trust so completely. But you can do it. We did it. And you can too. The phoenix rises from ashes. That is the nature of transformation. You burn down the old life, the toxic relationships, the parts of yourself that were never really you, and from those ashes, you build something new, something stronger, something that cannot be broken. That is my story. That is Emily's story. And if you need it to be, it can be your story too. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a phoenix, waiting to rise. So rise. Take back your life. Set your boundaries. Protect what you love. Build something beautiful from the ruins. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you do not deserve to thrive. Because you do. We all do. That is what I learned from the worst experience of my life. And that is what I want you to know. If you are facing something similar, you will survive this. You will heal. You will rise. I promise.